When Isabella broke up with me, I was standing in my kitchen, wearing an apron, searing scallops for her. "Jake, we're done. Here's $500,000. Isabella Vance, draped in a gown that probably cost more than my car, held out a certified check, her manicured fingers perfectly steady. Standing behind her was her new agent, Leo Fisher, a recent college grad who was all charm, sharp suit, and predatory smile. He looked a little too slick for his own good. "Okay," I said, not missing a beat. "Fine, Isabella. If you think your Oscar means you're set for life and you don't need me anymore, then let's make a clean break. After all, over the last year, we'd spent more time apart than together. The flame had been sputtering for a while. I just hope your career stays on track without my scripts and my behind-the-scenes support. Good luck with that." Isabella and I both came out of USC School of Cinematic Arts. I was in the screenwriting program. She was in acting. It took us 3 years to go from classmates to a couple. Back then, she wasn't a standout in the acting department. USC is crawling with former child stars and industry kids, and no matter how hard Isabella worked, she couldn't compete with the ones who'd been on set since they were toddlers. She used to whisper to me about how she envied the A-listers on the red carpet, clutching their awards. She wanted to be the one bathed in the flashbulbs, showered with praise. "Bella, do you really want that life? What we have now is pretty great," I'd said once, confused. Thanks to a series of what I can only describe as fortuitous insights, in college, I come into a wealth of knowledge that felt like it belonged to another world. My screenwriting was head and shoulders above everyone else's. I was selling scripts for 6 figures while still in school. The novels I wrote on the side consistently hit the top of the bestseller lists. My bank account was already full enough for me to retire. Isabella had looked at me, annoyed. "You don't get it. My dream is to win an Oscar. Jake, your scripts are incredible. Can you just get me in a room? Please?" Looking at her pleading eyes, I'd caved. She was the girl I'd put on a pedestal. With my subtle help, Isabella went from a bit part to a supporting role, then from the co-star to the lead. In just 4 years, she transformed from a struggling actress into an A-list star. It was easy for me, really. As the writer, I had the leverage to get the studio to cast my preferred actress in a minor role. And as each of my scripts turned into a blockbuster, my influence in the industry grew exponentially. To her credit, Isabella worked hard back then. She had the drive. You know the saying, talent gets you in the door, but luck makes you a legend. Well, Isabella's luck was my scripts and my coaching. I knew every beat, every line, every motivation that would make a character resonate with audiences. With my playbook, it was almost impossible for her not to succeed. As her star rose, I steered her toward a few prestige indie films and the Academy Awards that followed. She took home the Oscar for Best Actress. Standing on that stage, she was dazzling. "I want to thank my past self for all the sleepless nights and hard work," she'd said, breathless. "And I want to thank everyone who helped me along the way." A reporter from a gossip rag shouted a follow-up question. "There are rumors you're close with the screenwriter, Jake Reed. Is there any truth to that?" Isabella barely hesitated. "We're just friends. I earned these roles through my own talent and hard work." "Thank you." I was in the audience, silent, my nails digging into my palms so hard they drew blood. Later that night, she'd wrapped herself around me. "I'm sorry, Jake. I can't reveal our relationship right now. Just give me 3 years. 3 years to solidify my career, and then I'll tell the world. We'll get married, I promise." I heard her, and I believed her. I agreed to be the man in the shadows, waiting for her. For the next 3 years, I not only kept feeding her a steady stream of award-winning scripts that cemented her status as a top-tier superstar, but I also coached her relentlessly. It got to the point where she didn't even bother trying to understand the characters herself. She knew if she just delivered the lines exactly as I told her to, it would be good enough. Her focus shifted. She became more interested in Vogue covers, Tiffany & Co., photo shoots, and Chanel endorsements. Acting was just a means to an end. Then she told me she wanted me to be her silent partner for good. She would be the face, the breadwinner, and I would handle the logistics from home, coach her performances, write her scripts, and manage her life. I was naive enough to think this was our forever. But her work got busier. She hired a new agent, Leo, that handsome kid fresh out of college. Soon, she was only coming home once a week, then maybe once a month. When I asked what she was doing, the answer was always the same: working, shooting a campaign, making money. You need to act. I told her on the phone 3 days ago. You haven't been in a film for almost a year. For an actor, even a huge star, a year or two without a project is dangerous. It's fine. Leo already booked me for a new reality show. It's a lifestyle thing. Don't worry about it. And she hung up. Leo, that was the agent. And a lifestyle show she mentioned? I knew all about it. The entire concept was my idea. I had a significant ownership stake and creative control over the program. Without me, the show wouldn't exist. I never got the chance to tell her. Instead, I got dumped. She had no idea how many scripts I secretly ghost wrote, how many directors and studio heads owed me favors. All she saw was her own glory, her own red carpet. People say clarity can strike like lightning. That's what it felt like for me. The Jake who was blindly in love was gone. I finally understood that her affection was never for me. It was for the red carpet I could get her on. The days after the breakup were packed. My portfolio of killer scripts and best-selling novels is endless, and a line of directors and producers wanting to work with me could circle the block. This morning, I had a meeting with the director of that lifestyle reality show to discuss the next season. The first one was a massive hit, and he was desperate to replicate its success. While we were talking, he took a call. What? His face darkened. Just agree to her demands for now. I'll handle it when I get back. He hung up and gave me a long, searching look. Mr. Reed, are you sure you and Ms. Vance are over? I wasn't sure where he was going with this, but I nodded. Completely. That's not a secret. Most of the top directors and industry insiders knew something about our relationship, which is why they always treated Isabella with kid gloves. My reputation as the industry's invisible godfather meant they couldn't afford to disrespect me. Well, the director said, looking embarrassed. Ms. Vance arrived on set and is demanding to be put up in a hotel. She refuses to sleep on a wooden bed in a rustic cabin. The whole point of the show, which was set on a remote farmstead in Vermont, was for the celebrity guests to live simply and connect with nature. The accommodations were basic but comfortable. I couldn't believe Isabella was already pulling the diva card. That's not my problem, I said coolly. I just provide the concept. If the show goes down in flames, that's on you. I leaned forward, but a friendly word of advice. The entire brand of your show is authenticity and getting back to nature. If it leaks that one of your stars is sneaking off to a luxury hotel every night, you're finished. The show was a cash cow for me too, and I didn't want it to die a premature death. The director nodded grimly. I understand, Mr. Reed. I know what to do. No sooner had that meeting ended than my phone rang. It was Isabella. Jake, do you know anyone on this reality show? I need a favor. I can pay you, of course. Her first words to me weren't regret or nostalgia, but a transaction. She still saw me as her fixer, the guy who could make any problem disappear with a single phone call. But at least this time she offered money. Progress, I guess. Not that I needed it. Sorry, we broke up. I'm not going to burn my professional contacts for you. If money could solve every problem in Hollywood, it would be a much simpler place. This town runs on circles of influence, and you can't just buy your way in. Jake, her voice rose to that familiar, demanding pitch. This place they have me in is a dump. I want to stay somewhere else. For old time's sake. I hung up before she could finish. Old time sake. If our past meant anything, you wouldn't have hidden our relationship for years. You wouldn't have thought you could just pay me off and toss me aside the second you won your Oscar. I didn't follow up on the situation. I was too busy juggling ghostwriting gigs and meetings with producers. A few days later, the story broke on TMZ. A tourist had snapped a photo of an actress from that hit nature-themed reality show sneaking out of a five-star resort in Stowe in the middle of the night and being driven back to the filming location at dawn. The scandal blew up. The show's entire premise was about authenticity. If one person was faking it, was the whole production a lie? Online sleuths with way too much time on their hands quickly identified the actress, Isabella Vance. The director called me, sounding frantic. Mr. Reed, we originally denied Ms. Vance's request, but her agent, Leo, snuck her out anyway. He told her no one would find out. We're preparing to sue her for breach of contract. I just wanted to check with you first. He was still worried about me. He knew if I still had feelings for her, I wouldn't let him ruin her career. An official lawsuit from the network would be a death sentence. But on the other hand, who was going to compensate the network for the millions in damages? The show was a ratings juggernaut, with ad buys in the tens of millions. Now, it was tainted, and the financial loss would be astronomical. That cost had to fall on Isabella. My answer was simple. Do what you have to do, Fitz. And don't forget, I have a percentage of that show's profits. When you win the lawsuit, make sure my share of the settlement is wired to my account. I was owed at least a cool $1 million from that deal. I wasn't about to let it go. I knew, without a doubt, that it was her new agent who had pushed her to do it, thinking he was looking out for her comfort. When I used to run these kinds of shoots with Isabella, this never happened. If she couldn't handle the conditions, I'd arrange for her to rest in a luxury RV on site, not leave the production bubble entirely. Today's high-end RVs are basically mobile apartments. There was no need to sneak off to a hotel. But that Leo kid was an idiot. He seemed to think they were untouchable, not realizing that in the age of social media, one tiny mistake can knock you off the pedestal and into the mud. While I waited for my money, I was busy with my next project. The film rights to my latest novel had sold before I'd even finished writing it, and now I was neck-deep in the adaptation process. It's a rule of mine that's become famous in the industry. If you want to adapt my work, I have to be a hands-on producer and co-writer. Otherwise, no deal. People scoffed at first, but after my projects kept winning awards and breaking box office records, they were practically begging me to get involved. This new project was a gritty, medieval fantasy epic. The director and I had gone through a dozen names for the female lead, but none of them felt right. The role required an actress with serious stunt work ability and advanced horse riding skills, a rare combination in Hollywood. Maybe we can just fake it with CGI and wire work, the director suggested. Have a wrangler lead the horse. I was firm. No, audiences can tell the difference between a green screen and the real thing. Let's hold an open casting call. He couldn't argue. I had leveraged my IP rights for a 20% stake in the film's profits. I had more power than he did. The announcement that a top-tier studio, a legendary director, and I were holding open auditions for the lead in a major blockbuster sent a shockwave through the industry. Every actress, from Oscar winners to rising starlets, wanted in. Everyone knew the story of Isabella Vance, how she'd gone from a nobody to a superstar in just a few years. They all knew what the backing of the industry's invisible Godfather could do for a career. The audition panel consisted of me, the director, 2 other writers, and an executive from the studio. Of course, not just anyone could walk in. A rigorous pre-screening process had already weeded out most of the hopefuls. As we dismissed one actress after another, the director's frown deepened. Next, the woman who walked in made me do a double take. Then the entire room fell silent. It was my Oscar-winning ex-girlfriend, Isabella Vance. She still looked glamorous, but there was a weariness in her eyes she couldn't hide. She'd been fighting the lawsuit with the network for weeks. Since she was clearly in the wrong, she'd ultimately been forced to settle, paying the production company a reported $20 million in damages. You'd think a star of her caliber could afford that. But Isabella had spent her money as fast as she'd earned it. She was desperate for a payday. She must have walked in thinking her reputation would make this a sure thing. But when she saw me sitting at the judge's table, she froze, a look of pure disbelief on her face. "What are you doing here?" she stammered, as if she'd seen a ghost. This was a top-tier production. The room was filled with A-list talent. What right did I have to be a judge? In her mind, I was still just a quiet little screenwriter who managed her life in the shadows, the guy who could write a decent script. She had paid attention to my work at first, but once she became famous, she stopped caring. All that mattered was whether the movies I got her were blockbusters and the ad campaigns were for luxury brands. She never could have imagined that the boyfriend she discarded would be sitting here today, holding her entire future in his hands. As you can see, I'm one of the judges. Please begin when you're ready, Ms. Vance, I said, all business. Isabella did have some martial arts training. I had forced her to learn years ago, but she was rusty. Still, compared to the actresses we'd seen before her, she was the best of a bad bunch. When she finished her routine, the director nodded, looking moderately pleased. Not bad. He then looked to me. It was adequate, I said, my tone neutral. Isabella's brow furrowed. Directors, writers, she said, her voice dripping with indignation. I believe my qualifications are self-evident. You all know I've starred in 3 action films that were all box office hits. I hope the studio will consider my track record and not let the opinion of certain unimportant people affect our potential collaboration. Even now, even here, she still saw me as insignificant, someone whose opinion couldn't possibly sway the industry heavyweights in the room. The director, clearly annoyed, waved a hand for her to leave. As soon as the door closed, he and everyone else at the table turned to look at me. The final decision was mine. If I said no, the movie wouldn't happen. Are you really willing to risk another PR nightmare by hiring her? I said, rubbing my temples. Next, please. Everyone recalled the reality show scandal and fell silent. No one wanted to see a $100 million investment destroyed by one problematic actor. Fortunately, among the remaining actresses, there was one young woman with an incredible martial arts background. Her flexibility, her movements, everything was precise and powerful. She's the one, I said, making my final decision. Even if she's a newcomer. The young actress bowed deeply, her voice trembling with emotion. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jake. It turned out she was an alumna from my year at USC and a massive fan of my novels. What a coincidence. After the auditions wrapped up, I was heading out of the studio when I ran into Isabella and her agent, Leo. Jake, did you bribe the director not to choose me? She demanded, her heels clicking angrily on the pavement. Her eyes were filled with pure contempt. I couldn't believe I was ever stupid enough to love someone like this, to fall for her act. Think whatever you want, I said, too tired to argue. How much did you give them? I'll give you double. I need this role, she said. Even now, when she was begging me for help, her tone was still demanding. I guess that's how she'd always spoken to me. Blinded by love, I just never noticed. Her agent, Leo, chimed in. Come on, Jake. You and Bella were together for years. You shouldn't be turning on her like this. I looked at his smarmy, handsome face and laughed. I'm talking to her. Does the assistant get a say in this? Leo's face flushed with anger, and for a second, I thought he was going to take a swing at me. He clearly thought his position as Isabella's right-hand man put him above a supposedly no-name writer like me. After putting them both in their place, I felt a lot better. I turned to leave. But Isabella, swallowing her pride, blocked my path. Her reputation was in free fall, and she desperately needed this role to salvage her career. Jake, can't you just help me one more time? Her voice and eyes were exactly the same as they were years ago when she begged me to help her break into the business. Fragile, pitiful, designed to make you ache for her. I just gave her a weary look. That trick didn't work on me anymore. As I walked away, I could hear her shouting behind me. That she didn't need my help, that she could have made it on her own, that my contribution was minimal, that I should just wait and see. How naive. Did she really believe she got those roles through her own efforts? That my help was just a small part of it? Pathetic. I put out of my mind. The new actress, my fellow alum, was insisting on taking me out to dinner to celebrate. It was the first time a fan had ever offered to treat me. I couldn't really say no, for the studio's lead investor filled me in on what happened next. Apparently, Isabella threw a lot of money around, calling in every favor she had to try and snatch the role. But the moment those powerful people heard the project was mine, they all backed off. They treated her offers like a radioactive hot potato, returning her money and refusing her calls. Isabella was a falling star, but a writer with a proven track record of creating blockbuster IPs is a permanent fixture in this town. I held the rights to dozens of best-selling properties and had deep ties with every major studio. They would have to be insane to alienate me for the sake of a so-called Oscar winner, who was now considered box office poison. Thanks to my otherworldly insights, I own a library of IPs so vast they were practically tripping over each other to get on my good side. Why would they ever veto a lead actress I had personally chosen? I later heard that Isabella, at the urging of her agent, had signed on to do a historical costume drama with a rival studio. It was a production company I'd had a run-in with before. I'd refused to sell them the rights to one of my novels because they wanted to completely butcher the plot. They still held a grudge. Their film wasn't focused on authentic action or a compelling story, but on flashy special effects. They even brought in a big-name international effects team, making a huge media splash about how they were going head-to-head with our picture. When I heard the news, I was too busy on set to care. I was overseeing everything, from the quality of the fight choreography to the historical accuracy of the set design. It was exhausting, but the result was going to be a film crafted with meticulous care, perfect in every detail from costumes and props to the actors' performances. And Chloe, the young actress I'd chosen, was a revelation. Not only was she fearless and hardworking, but she was also a quick study. She picked up complex fight sequences in a fraction of the time it used to take Isabella. I barely had to coach her. Because she was a fan of the original novel, she had an intuitive grasp of the character, which saved me countless hours. Meanwhile, Isabella's production was reportedly plagued by delays and on-set accidents. Despite this, she and the studio boldly proclaimed that their film would be the #1 fantasy epic of the year. It was a direct challenge to me. My director and investors wanted to launch a counteroffensive in the press, but I stopped them. In this business, you let the work speak for itself. Though their filming schedule was a mess, their marketing machine was running full tilt. Isabella posted a video of herself drenched in sweat while hanging from a wire, followed by a photo of a scraped knee she supposedly got from a fall while riding a horse. The caption read, "No matter how hard it gets, I'll always give my all for my art." Between her fans and the studio's army of online bots, the internet quickly forgot about her reality show scandal. The narrative shifted. My queen is working so hard. She's so dedicated to her craft. The movie was generating massive hype before a single frame was released. I didn't know if her injuries were real or fake. All I knew was that every actor on my set was working 10 times harder than she was pretending to. Scraped knees? Chloe had been thrown from a galloping horse twice, nearly breaking her neck. In the midst of her media blitz, Isabella called me, her voice giddy with triumph. "Jake, I was such an idiot to listen to you about not using stunt doubles. Look at me now. I've got all the buzz and the work is a breeze. The effects team and my double handle everything. Breaking up with you was the best decision I ever made. Leo is the one who truly cares about me." My response was to block her number. Fine. Let the person who truly cares about you continue to guide your career. Isabella's film wrapped just as ours did. Even with their messy production, a movie that relies on CGI can be shot faster than one that insists on practical effects. It was inevitable that our release dates would clash. We stuck to our original schedule, but it felt like they had deliberately chosen their date to compete with us. We weren't afraid. However, Isabella's celebrity status gave her a huge advantage in initial publicity. Our lead, Chloe, was a newcomer. In the weeks leading up to the premiere, Isabella and her studio were relentlessly aggressive, taking potshots at us in every interview and press junket. At one point, she said directly to a reporter, "I'd like to clear something up. There was a ridiculous rumor that I only became famous because of a college classmate. As you can all see now, that's obviously not the case." I ignored the provocations. I was a behind-the-scenes guy. It wasn't my place to engage in public feuds. Isabella even sought me out one last time. She was decked out in jewels, with Leo trailing behind her in an Armani suit. Her comeback was in full swing, and she was landing major endorsement deals again. "See, Jake, my life is so much better without you. I don't have to suffer for my art, and I'm still going to make a fortune at the box office." She smirked. "Oh, and by the way, I'm about to sign a global contract with Chanel." With that, she and her lapdog swept away. I just stood there baffled. How was it possible that I was in love with that woman for so long? Being blinded by love is a dangerous thing. On its opening day, Isabella's movie did have a decent box office turnout. But within 24 hours, the word of mouth turned toxic. The film was an unmitigated disaster. The special effects were cheap, the plot was a rehash of a dozen better movies, and the continuity errors were laughable. The action scenes were clearly performed by stunt doubles, with awkward cutaways to Isabella's face. The historical setting was a confusing mess of different eras. It was, in a word, unwatchable. Our film, on the other hand, started strong and just kept building. We drew in audiences with our visceral, bone-crunching action sequences and a story with real heart. As the backlash against Isabella's film grew, all the attention and ticket buyers she had courted flowed directly to us. She had basically paid for our marketing. Film bloggers and YouTubers had a field day, posting side-by-side comparison videos that broke down every aspect in which our film triumphed, from costumes and cinematography to acting and story. Isabella's team tried to fight back, hiring trolls to spam our reviews and deleting negative comments on their own pages. But even their paid haters couldn't find a single historical inaccuracy in our film to attack. In response, our studio released behind-the-scenes footage. Chloe actually riding a horse at full gallop while firing a bow and arrow. Chloe being thrown to the ground during a stunt, getting up, and doing it again. The contrast was undeniable. The final result was no surprise. Our movie not only claimed the top spot at the box office, but also broke records, earning a place as one of the top 10 highest-grossing domestic films of all time. Of those 10, my name was on 6. As for Isabella, her reputation was shattered beyond repair. The story of her reality show meltdown resurfaced, compounded by new reports of her diva behavior and a leaked video of her screaming at a fan online. I used to manage her social media accounts, carefully curating her image because I understood the power of a loyal fan base. She, however, seemed to think she was untouchable. The backlash was swift and brutal. She lost millions of followers overnight, and several brands dropped her as a spokesperson. After the double disaster of the reality show and the movie, Isabella was officially box office poison. No studio would touch her. It was during this time that Chloe, on the pretense of thanking me again, dragged me out for another celebratory dinner. She was now a bona fide star, and she was still adorably weepy with gratitude. I always take a break after finishing a film, usually by hiding out in a cabin somewhere remote to avoid the flood of calls from directors and producers. But the news from the outside world kept filtering in. Chloe, in an interview, said, "I owe my success entirely to Jake Reed. I'm so grateful to him for giving me this chance, and I hope I can work with him for the rest of my career." It was a stark contrast to Isabella's past denials. The news about Isabella wasn't so positive. First, she was fired from a low-budget TV show for her on-set tantrums. Then, the IRS launched an investigation into her for tax evasion. Apparently, her brilliant agent, Leo, had set up a scheme to hide her income, telling her they could pocket the difference. She had even bragged to a mutual acquaintance about how I'd been a fool for always paying my taxes, while Leo was smart and always looked out for her best interests. After being hit with a massive fine and back tax bill, Isabella went from a lavish-living former star to a broke actress living on credit. No one would hire her, terrified of the toxic cloud of drama that surrounded her. During my vacation, I received a flood of calls and texts from her, all from different burner phones. "Jake, this is all your fault. Why didn't you give me that role? Jake, I was wrong. I should have listened to you. I should have done my own stunts. Jake, it was Leo's idea to evade taxes. It was all him. Jake, please just answer me. I made a mistake. I want to marry you. I'll tell everyone you're the reason I became a star. Is that what you want to hear?" I ignored every single message. I wasn't that lovesick fool anymore. What had me conflicted, however, was the constant stream of invitations from Chloe and the studio to attend the Academy Awards. Should I go? The decision was made for me when Chloe delivered an ultimatum. If I didn't go, she wouldn't go either. Then she threatened to publicly declare her love for me, which was enough to get me on a plane. I finally agreed to go, walking the red carpet with Chloe and the rest of the cast and crew. My official title on the film was executive producer. While Chloe was answering questions from reporters on the red carpet, her arm linked confidently through mine. She said, "Yes, of course, I have a crush on him. I've been his biggest fan since college." Suddenly, there was a commotion near the entrance. A woman had tried to force her way past security and was being escorted away. Someone whispered that it was the previous year's Best Actress winner. Isabella couldn't even get an invitation to the ceremony anymore. During the awards show, Chloe was a nervous wreck. As a newcomer nominated for Best Actress, she was up against a field of legends. I gently patted her hand. "Relax. What's yours is yours. I have my sources. I already knew the results." When her name was called, she burst into tears on stage. "The first person I have to thank," she said, clutching the Oscar, "is Jake Reed. He gave me this opportunity. It is not an exaggeration to say that without him, I would not be standing here tonight." Unlike Isabella, Chloe never hid her admiration for me, single-mindedly devoted, even if it meant sacrificing the single starlet persona her publicist wanted. She didn't care. Being with me, she said, was all she wanted. After the ceremony, as Chloe and I were leaving the theater, her Oscar in hand, a woman in a cheap but flashy red dress lunged out of the crowd. "That trophy should be mine." It was Isabella. Security guards quickly grabbed her and dragged her away. She would never understand. Her entire strategy, from the moment she first used her acting skills to gain my sympathy to leveraging my love for her own ambition, was flawed from the start. As we got into the car, Chloe rested her head on my shoulder, a soft smile on her face. You know, back at USC, when I found out you were dating Isabella Vance, I was so mad. I was one of the first people to ever read your novels. The stories you submitted to the literary club. I was the one who edited them. I was the one who submitted them to the contest for you. It finally clicked. Chloe had been on the student committee that reviewed submissions for the Arts Journal. She was my very first reader. All this time, it was her. Maybe everything was meant to be.